I'm Will Hardy, husband, father, entrepreneur, hotelier, and filmmaker, and a man in the middle of his story. I've had wins, I've had breakdowns, I've had moments where I felt unstoppable, and moments where I didn't know if I could take one more step. And I know I'm not the only one. This podcast is a place where we tell the truth, where leaders, dreamers, husbands, wives, entrepreneurs can come clean about the real journey. Because together, we heal faster. Together, we get clearer. Together, we rise. This is an invitation to walk with me, not after it's perfect, but while it's still being written. Welcome to EnterUp. Welcome back to the EnterUp Podcast. My name is Will, and I'm your host. I am beyond excited. I'm really just pumped about this guest that I get a privilege to talk to today. He is Canadian-born author, best known for writing the global phenomenon, The Shack, which he originally wrote as a Christmas gift to his children until it became a #1 New York Times best-selling novel that has sold tens of millions of copies all over the world. He raised in Papua New Guinea by missionary parents. Paul has a unique cross-cultural upbringing that shaped his perspective on faith, pain, and grace. Since The Shack, he's published other novels like Crossroads, Eve, The Lies That We Believe About God, and all known for blending storytelling with spiritual insight. He lives in the Pacific Northwest with his beautiful, lovely wife, Kim. There are 6 children that they have raised and many, many grandchildren. I don't know exactly how many those numbers are, but I want to hear more about that. Without further ado, William Paul Young, welcome to the EnterUp Podcast. So honored to have you, brother. How are you?
Honored to be with you. We had a little calm in the weather in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm grateful for that. I've known Will for a bunch of years now, and I'm just thrilled to be with you. What a good way to celebrate Christmas, especially since the Shack was a Christmas present, all those years ago.
Well, definitely want to dive into that, Paul. No doubt to hear the fullness of that story. I tell you, I got to just share a personal story, just to give the listeners a little bit of an idea of the man that you are. My wife brought your novel to me, The Shack. This is almost 13, 14 years ago that she brought this to me, and it absolutely revolutionized my life, my thinking, how I approach my relationship with God and religion in general. So impactful, so powerful. And my wife doesn't get impressed easily. But after she read that book, she went on a goose chase to follow more about your story, your life, started following you, purchasing your other books, and reading all your content material. And you just happened to be stepping into Atlanta, Georgia, where we lived at the time, to do a conference one night. And I surprised my wife and I got tickets. I saw it through social media and I was like, you know what? I think Alicia would really enjoy this. So we show up, Paul, and you speak and you do what you do, which is wow so many people in the crowd, including ourselves. And I'll never forget at the very end where you said, listen, I want to talk to each and every one of you. And there were hundreds of people there. And you just said, I'm going to come right over here to the side of the stage and I'm going to stay here. And as long as it takes, meet each and every one of you. And I'll never forget this. I kind of looked over at my wife and there was already a long line building. And she said, we're staying to meet him. And I was like, really? Which Alicia would never do. I mean, that's just, she doesn't get impressed easily, like I said. And I said, no problem. So we sat in line and we waited and we finally got up to you. And first off, so many speakers, as you know, Paul, they're one person and on the stage and then they become somebody different behind the curtain. But just to see your heart and your effort to want to connect and engage with the audience was so powerful. Well, we finally get up there. It's our turn. And I'll never forget this. You just grabbed my hand. You looked me like straight into my soul. And you said, wow, you really are the perfect balance of the lion and the lamb. And I was just like, whoa. And
Wow.
then you kind of just like pushed me to the side, which you should have, and you grabbed my wife. And for those of you, you didn't know this at the time, but now you're friends with Alicia, but she never knew her biological father, right? And you grabbed her and you hugged her. That's the first thing you did, and you started just kind of speaking life into her ear, and then you started singing a lullaby to her. So she's just bawling. I mean, she just breaks, right? And we come out of this experience, and I'm like out the door going, "What just happened? What did he say to you?" And she said he sang a lullaby to me. Well, the most powerful thing about the for me is that one, that she never had that experience with a natural father. But then for two, I think your exact words were, after you did it, you go, "Wow, I've never done that to another woman outside of my daughters before.
Yeah, and I've never done it since.
Yeah. But I just thought how beautiful that is, and I really just want to share that quick story. This is not about me; it's about you today. But I just wanted people to hear the authenticity of the man that you are, and the unique ability you have to connect with human beings at such a raw, real level. So thank you for doing that, brother. That really meant the world. So um,
Thanks. I didn't. I vaguely remember that, and it was after that that I ended up in your house and met some of your friends, and that was remarkable too. One of the one of the elements of healing, I knew that I had worked through the big bones of the shack, the big construction pieces, the year I turned 50, and one of the elements of that was I was the same person in every situation.
mm,
And I didn't grow up ever being the same person in two situations. I played to the audience, whoever the audience was,
mm,
and so because I didn't think I had anything in me that was of any value or any good, and so you take on a persona, and because you still need some form of acceptance and affection, even though you don't trust it.
mm,
Um, and I knew that I didn't trust it. But the year I turned 50, I'd gone through enough processing where a number of things came into place, and that was the year I wrote The Shack. And one of the big ones was I was finally in all situations the same person. I'm no different with you on a podcast than I'm in a hotel room by myself, or I'm with my grandbabies, or with total strangers. And I love that story. Like I said, I vaguely remember it, but once you told me about it, it came back, and that's to me being present in the moment, participating with what the Holy Spirit wants to do.
mm,
And um, people always, who was I talking to? I think one of my daughters, and she was listening to a podcast yesterday, and the person in the podcast was saying something like, well, this was all God, right? This is not me, this is all God. And she said, I know that that would bother you because it bothered me. And God didn't write The Shack alone, and I didn't write it alone either.
mm.
And this is about participation, and life is about participation. That's why I tell people God will never use you. I've got a sexual abuse history, and that's abuse language.
Mm.
God will never abuse us, and He will never use us. It's always an invitation to participate. And there's such a deep respect for who we are as unique human beings, crafted in the image and likeness of God, but with our own embodied existence that God will not violate. In fact, will redeem in such a way that we become a unique sound into the cosmos like no one else can. There's never going to be another Will Hardy, never, and never with the sound that you create. And as you come to wholeness, that sound becomes more clarifying and more true. And the world needs you, and Papa God invites you to participate. So
Wow. We don't hear that enough, do we, Paul? I,
no,
part of this podcast, EnterUp, it's based on the word, it's a play on the word interruption, interrupt, right?
hmm
And God
yeah,
knows I've had those interruptions in my life that have allowed me to awaken to kind of a higher level of life and a higher level of thinking, and really, like you said, ultimately stop hiding, right? Stop shaming myself for who I am, and keeping me bound in kind of those mental and physical chains that I had built up. But the biggest part of this podcast is really talking about the messy middle, the things that a lot of people aren't hearing, right? It's always that
yeah,
Instagrammable version of what somebody looks like online versus what's really going on behind the closet and the curtain. And if you wouldn't mind, Paul, would you share with the listener a little bit about what that looked like? Because this happened to you at 50, but obviously there was a stream of events that happened early on in your childhood that probably got you
yeah,
to this place, right? Would you mind talking about
yeah,
that for a few?
absolutely. And I'm at a place in my life where I will keep confidences because I care for people, but I don't have any secrets.
Mm,
Secrets, as far as I'm concerned, are snipers, and they'll just shoot you from someplace, in the shadows. And we were not designed to keep secrets. We were designed to live an open and thoroughly authentic, honest life, to be truth tellers. And that took me a lot of years to get there. Um, Missionary kid, as you mentioned, growing up in the highlands of what was Netherlands, New Guinea to start with, and became Irian Jaya and is West Papua now. And I went in there at about a year old, 10 months, and that became my world. And there were such incredible, beautiful things about third culture experiences, cross-cultural experiences, and I would never deny the positive impact of that. But there were some really hard things too. The sexual abuse started in the tribal culture around 5, somewhere between 5 and 6, and then I was sent to boarding school at 6, and there was sexual abuse in the boarding school. My dad was a very angry man. Um, he had he didn't have a chip really for being a father, and I know now because I have an aunt who's about to turn 105,
Mm.
who's a family historian. Actually, she is a historian, and she wrote a big, thick family history. And so I know that my dad's dad uh, beat the crap out of my dad and destroyed, at least to a great degree, permanently damaged his capacity to be a father.
Mm.
And I lost my culture at 6 when I went to boarding school. It's the first time I had any kind of cognizant sense that I was not a person of color, that I was one of those ghost people that the tribal people would talk about all the time. And so I lost my color, I lost my community, I lost my sense of family because I wasn't connected to my parents. And it's a rough thing, and I don't think it's right in almost every form. There may be, wow, it would be hard for me to think of things that are positive about sending a 6-year-old child away to boarding school. And so all of that I carried with me, and everything in my life taught me, including my theology, taught me that I was a piece of garbage. As Calvin would say, I was snow-covered dung,
Mm.
and which is, piece of shit theology. And so everything in my life communicated that to me, and I carried it. I became a performer. Turns out that I'm actually smart and creative. I just thought I knew how to fool people. And, liars are good storytellers. And for some of us, lying is a definite survival skill. It
Mm.
was with my dad. But my dad communicated that to me, that I was, worthless on the inside. So did my sexual abuse. So did the abandonment stuff. So did my theology. I had a very angry God who was ambivalent. It just depended on how well you were performing, whether that God had any affection for the moment for you. Like a missionary kid wrote me and said, she said, when I was growing up, I couldn't really tell the difference between God and Satan, except with Satan, I knew where I stood.
Wow.
And so there was this element of God that wasn't trustworthy. And that's partly, I think, why people separate their spiritual lives away from their secular lives, as if that was a legitimate divide, which I don't believe at all. But they wanted to do the right things for God over here, and then the rest of their lives they compartmentalize. And it's because they didn't have a God they could actually trust. And a lot of my life has been detoxifying some of the theology that I grew up with. And, I have to say that part of what I grew up with was very valid and very helpful and very good. It was just mixed up with so much crappy theology, like a literal eternal conscious torment hell, or,
Mm.
where you have a God who is beats the crap out of his own son, which was my experience with my dad. And so largely I painted the face of God with the face of my dad.
Mm.
And all of that I dragged into my marriage with Kim. I had been a porn addict since 12 years old after we came back from the mission field.
Mm.
And, the imagination of a relationship without the risk of being turned down by a real relationship,
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. I dragged it all into my marriage with Kim. And thankfully, I met a very powerful woman from a very powerful family tribe. And and she, the fury that she had, I affectionately refer to her now as the wrath of God. And I mean that affectionately, because I don't believe the wrath of God is aimed at us as individual human beings, but the wrath of God is aimed at, like with my kids, it's aimed at everything in their lives that keeps them from being fully human and fully alive.
Mm.
Everything that restricts their capacity to be free. And in my relationship with my kids, I am opposed in as fiery fury as I can be against that which harms them. Same with my grandkids, same with people that I care about,
Yeah.
even my enemies now. I don't aim my anger at them. I am furious about the things that keep them incarcerated, and because that just spills out and affects the world.
Mm.
So, 13 years into our marriage, I had kept the facade up pretty well. Um, um, uh, Marriage initially terrified me. I think God sort of tricked me into it, and and Kim paid a really high price for that, and
Mm.
not a fair one at all. And but she would say now that it was all worth it. But man, what a hell we went through, because she caught me in a 3-month affair with one of her best friends,
Mm.
and that started an 11-year period of really. I had a choice. My choice was to see if there was a way to change, or just simply to kill myself.
Mm.
And suicide had always been the last way to run away from me.
Yeah.
And marriage was, it was, I got caught inside of of a conundrum, really, where it wasn't easy to leave without totally pushing myself into a place of shame that was so deep I couldn't get out.
Mm.
And so I had to make a decision when Kim caught me. And it was either find a way to change or just kill myself.
Mm.
And that 11 years, it took him and I 11 years before I knew that she trusted me again, and that she had every reason to. The 12th year was the year I wrote The Shack. And and here are the things, the elements of my life that were in place by the time that I wrote The Shack. Evidences of being whole included, as I said, being the same person in every situation. I had no addictions. I have no secrets. Um, Joy is now a constant companion.
Mm.
I have a sense of what it must be like, and my grandkids help me a lot with this, what it must be like to be a child. I know how to stay most of the time in the present tense, and where the real world is like this one right here, Will, where I'm talking to you. This is the real world for me right now. And but it impacted my identity, my worth, my value, my security, my meaning, purpose issues, um, my community, my relationships. I mean, that changed everything for me. And I'm kind of like one of the healthiest people that I know,
Wow.
but I can still get triggered. But it usually doesn't take me so long. It's taken me longer to learn how to deal with my relationship with people that I love, much more than with strangers, which
Mm.
is such a weird thing. Um, and I see this all the time, that people have a capacity to love a stranger better than to love members of their family and their kids and their grandkids, because they have a set of expectations for their kids and friends that they don't have for a stranger.
Wow.
And expectations are what are killers, you know. When you finally learn to live without expectations, everything becomes a gift.
Mm.
So, so if you want to talk about interruptions, somebody asked me recently, you know, what what was the catalyst for becoming as whole a person as you are? And I said, I don't recommend it. You know, adultery played a pretty big, it was a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
And talk about an interruption and talk about a reset. But it took 11 years. And, you know, in this world, it's too easy to walk away and start again. It's too easy to not
Yeah.
do the work. And there are some situations where if if both parties are not willing to be involved, then reconciliation is not a process that's available. Forgiveness is easy compared to reconciliation.
Mm.
Forgiveness is just, it's for the sake of the one who's been harmed so that they don't continue their whole life bearing a burden of poison.
Mm.
And, but reconciliation is for the one who did the harming. And when that happens, frankly, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
And, and it happened in my life, but man, I would never want to go through that again.
I can't imagine, Paul, and you are right. You are probably the wholest person that I have ever met. And every time I get around you, you can feel that peace. You can feel that openness. You can feel that honesty, and it's beautiful to watch. When you say the work, you did the work. What did that look like for those 11 years? Is that therapy?
Oh,
Is that what were all the pieces of
yeah.
that that could help others?
So, the process, and this is why principles aren't very helpful all the time. I say to people, if you're going to write a book on marriage, you need to write one per marriage, or
Yeah.
write a kid's book, one per child. And but I can tell you kind of what the elements were in my story. One was right off the bat. Kim, when she called me the first time, she said, I'm waiting for you at your office, and I know, click, that was
Ooh.
it.
Ooh.
And I remember where I was, and I remember my friend, and he and I had gone out to Vietnamese food. I know the restaurant. In that moment, I knew that I'd gotten caught, and it was almost a relief. I mean,
Mm.
um, I stepped into a little bit of insanity during that whole. It was such a violation to everything that I had always said that I believed, and all of
Mm.
that. And I don't even, the memory that I don't have is how I made it across town to my office where Kim was waiting.
Wow.
And I mean, she ripped into me and did not stop for the first 2 years, basically.
Mm.
But um, at one point, I said to her, "If we're going to do this," and here's the first really good decision that I made. I said, "If we're going to do this, I need to tell you every secret that I have,
Mm.
because secrets have been killing me my whole life." And naively, she said, "Bring it on." And it took me the next 3-ish days to tell her everything she didn't know.
Mm.
And, and it destroyed her. And
Wow.
she said, "I will never believe another word that comes out of your mouth the rest of your life."
Mm.
The reason that she even let me stay and just didn't bail on the marriage, because frankly, adultery is that which breaks a covenant,
Mhm.
in the most basic way. But the reason that she didn't, and she'd tell you this, is that she believed I'd hit the bottom. If I'd have, which I never even thought about doing, but if I'd have pointed a finger at her or started blaming this situation or that situation, she'd have been gone. It would have been over. And so that's the first thing that I did is I told the truth. And then she and I agreed that we weren't going to make adultery the new secret. Man, have I seen people that go through a, a tragedy like this, a betrayal like this. And Kim and her sisters would say the one thing that they absolutely hate is when people lie,
Mhm.
and adultery would never be allowed. So Kim went against the grain of the family system in that sense. And she has 5 sisters and 2 brothers. Her and her 5 sisters are called the Force. And may the force be with you. And and but they're incredible human beings. Yeah, everybody has their stuff, but um, when I worked through my stuff with Kim, they worked through their stuff with me at the same time, and they adore me. They
Mm.
absolutely love me, and my kids had to work that stuff out, and I have a great relationship with my kids.
Mm.
And but so the decision next one we made was I would be the one that told people. I would do that. It was part of owning what I had done. And I wouldn't simply apologize, which is the announcement that you got caught.
Mm.
It's very self-centered still in most respects. I understand apologies on very light surface kinds of things. I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. But asking forgiveness is to exchange power. That is to give the person a place of power where you've taken it away in some form or another. And so they're allowed to say, what are you asking forgiveness for? Or what does that actually mean? Or I have to think about it. I'm not sure that I can. Or, whatever. And so right from the beginning, the ah, the first person I had to tell was Kim's dad, who lived with us for 17 years before he passed.
Mm.
And so I get back to the house and I walk in, and it would have been easier if he beat the crap out of me because I have survival skills, right? I can disappear inside. Back then, I don't do it now,
Mm.
but but all I saw was tears run down his face,
Mm.
and he loved me. It broke his heart. It broke his heart, especially for Kim and the kids, and but he loved me. I mean, he never raised his voice against me. He never yelled at me. He never raised a fist. And I have no defenses for that.
Yeah.
I have no defenses for kindness. Um, in this world, I think people think that violence in word or thought or deed is the position of power, and it's not, because all it does is make the unlove in the world more unlovely. But the real strength and power is in kindness, is in love, is
Mm.
in care, because it actually changes things. And so, you know, I'm the one that told my family. I'm the one that told Kim's family. I'm the one that told her nephews and nieces. I'm the one that told our friends, but we didn't keep it a secret, and uh, and that was rough. And then I didn't know what to do, and the emotionally, the shame and everything else was so powerful, and I'd lived with it my whole life anyway, and hid it. But it it was like I didn't have enough strength to make it more than a day.
Mm.
I but I needed to do the next right thing. So if that meant work, if that meant you know listening to Kim just tear it apart, that's the next right thing. And so that's what started me learning how to live in the present tense, where to me, that's where God lives with us. God doesn't live with us in imaginations that don't exist. You don't get grace today for things that don't exist. It's about staying in the real world, Take no thought for tomorrow. Tomorrow's got enough issues of its own.
Mm.
Abide with me, stay with me. In the presence is fullness of joy. Take captive every imagination that is empty. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so then I pulled the yellow pages back when they had the yellow pages. I saw one just the other day, just uh, in our little small community of Brush Prairie, Washington. They have a little, but the ones that we had were for Portland, right? So they were this big, thick things. And I opened it up under C for counselor, and I started reading down the list, starting with the A's.
Mm.
'Cause this was not a world that I had any knowledge about, because of the way I grew up in a modern evangelical fundamentalist holiness group of people.
Yeah.
Therapists were sort of on right akin to witches, they were they were sort of on the edge, but I needed help. And so I went down the list and I found a box and a thing that said agape, which is love, right? God's kind of love, other centered, self giving, co suffering, self sacrificial, radically forgiving love, agape.
Mm.
Agape Youth and Family Services. And their box said, we specialize in sexual abuse histories. So I made an appointment, and Byron, he owned the clinic and oversaw everything. He did the intake, and he said, "I think I got a friend that will want to interview you, and you can interview him, and you can decide if it's a good fit." And I walked in and sat in front of Scott Mitchell, and Scott listened to my story, and then I said something that I'd never said in my life to another human being. I said, "Can you help me?"
Mm.
I, you know,
Yeah.
And Scott said, yeah, I can help you, but it's going to take a year and a half. And I said, I'm in. And then he laughed at me. He said, Paul, everybody that's sitting where you're sitting right now, they'll say that, but after a couple months, they'll feel better about themselves. They'll feel more in control,
Yeah.
and they will bail out right before the really hard stuff. And I said, I'm not leaving until you tell me I'm done. So he said, okay, let's work. 4 months, 3 months into this, I almost killed myself because I hit the really hard stuff, and I lost all my hope. I
Mm.
lost all my hope. And if I hadn't been intercepted by a friend, and if Kim hadn't been intercepted by a different friend, unbeknownst to each other, I probably wouldn't be alive. And a friend breathed some possibility into my life. And at that moment, enough for me to go back to Scott. And then we went back to work, and I worked really hard. 9 months into the therapy, he said one day, he says, Paul, you're done. And I'm like, what? You said it would take a year and a half. He said, we have never known anyone who had worked this hard and stuck to it.
Wow.
And so he kind of released me out into the world, is what it felt like.
Sure.
And at this point, I mean, this is 10 and a half months into this whole thing. So the first 2 years were hellish years.
Mm.
And part of hell, as far as I'm concerned, is owning your own consequences and the results of all that, which I'm still doing.
Sure.
All 30 some years later, there are certain relationships that are still harmed because of the choices that I made.
Wow.
And I have to still own them. And so a couple other things had started to happen with me. It took only a short time to destroy my porn addiction, that was unbelievable to me. But I'd started taking the risk of letting men into my life.
Mm.
And Scott had a big deal to do with that because
Sure.
he's really the first man I ever trusted.
Wow.
And and then I began to build a relationship with about a dozen guys. I mean, I went to a friend, another Scott, had said to me on a short trip one time. He had said, Paul, I need to tell you something. He said, I don't care how bad you screw up in your life, I'm not leaving.
So
That
good.
was a different world for me.
Yeah.
And he's the one who invited me to this little guys thing down in Northeast Portland that met, I think, every Monday night. And for the first, I don't know, year and a half, I didn't say one word, not in that group. I just sat and listened. And I just couldn't, because I couldn't trust my capacity with words.
Mm.
That had been such a central survival skill for me. And I had spun stories, I'd spun the truth, I had, shaded the truth, I had used people because of my fears, all of that, and it all came my capacity to use language. And for me, and I'm talking about, this is my journey. This is, and everybody's different. There are elements that are going to be the same, and but for me, I just couldn't, and I couldn't read scripture. It was so toxic to me.
Mm.
I just, I only saw the abusive, beating your son to death God. And so I started going through a detox process where I had to just lay the Bible down for a long time and allow the Holy Spirit to reintroduce parts of it slowly, bit by bit,
Mm.
where I could then see things that were different from the way that I'd heard and grown up and to some degree been indoctrinated. But you know, um, beauty came back slowly. Uh, so many things were just slow and incremental. We'd want we'd want a quick fix,
Yeah.
but we're too incredibly crafted for quick fixes. And God, we'd want Him to do miraculous, change your life in an instant sort of things, but he loves us too much,
That's right.
and
So
and
Paul,
God will not,
so
rip us out of the bars we call prison. Yeah,
yeah, I can't imagine how lonely you must have felt in that season,
yeah.
right?
But I've been lonely my whole life.
yeah, right. And
Yeah,
I guess what you're saying is a lot of that was masked by your own ego. It was masked by your self protection. At one point, you've said kind of God in His own humor has labeled you as a jester, right? Like
yeah.
you've had.
No, 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 no. Not the jester. I'm the joke, the riddle, and the enigma in the mouth of the court jester.
That's what it was. Yeah, that was. I'll never forget that when you told me that. But like you said, the importance of getting together with those other men, right? That you didn't have that trust with the male figure. In a world where we should be, where connection is so readily available, right? You think about the social media platforms in the world where everybody is just right around the corner to touch to, but yet as a society, we probably are the loneliest we've ever been. Why is that, Paul?
Well, you've mentioned it. One is, we're not enough of truth tellers to take the risk that we won't see the look of disgust on the other person's face, right?
Mm, yeah,
And we've learned to hide inside, our theology. It's there's been a huge gap between people acting righteous, acting holy, and their lives falling apart, right? So there hasn't been this integrity, this wholeness between the ways that people act and the truth of who they are, because they're just waiting to be caught. And so they're full of fear and they
mm,
don't tell you what's going on in their lives. And so this whole thing with authenticity, which is the basis for any good relationship, and trust and those kinds of things,
sure.
it's just missing. And we've substituted painting our facades in ways that we will get followers or things like that as a substitute.
Mm,
And it can never be a substitute for face-to-face relationships of transparency and authenticity and honesty. And those, somebody said to me recently, and they got it from somebody else, but trust is spelled RISK, risk. And we're such control freaks because we're so full of fear.
yeah,
And fear is what drives humanity to hide behind, say, social media or hide behind presentation or false personas or all that. And because we don't think there's anything actually of any value in us. And so it's all about fear based motivation to protect the false personas we've created that are on the outside.
mm,
And, uh, and it is so harmful and so damaging. And, uh, and the destruction of those things requires that we become truth tellers, which is so hard.
yeah,
Um, and so there's a billion reasons why we hide the way we do, but all of them are founded in fear.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, let's talk about that fear piece for a second because and I love what you've always said before about future tripping, right? And you
yeah,
and you have this ability to now to be so present in every situation in your life, and this is what I struggle with personally, Paul. We've had these conversations as an entrepreneur, as a man that wears many different hats, as a father and a husband, and I know so many other business leaders that we just have this really difficult time of being present, enjoying the moment, right? Like I can't tell you
yeah,
how many milestones that I've set in my life, for a certain vision or hey, I'd like to accomplish this or I want to build this company or I want to hit this mile marker financially. And I can almost guarantee you every time that I've ever done that, number one, I don't even stop to celebrate, right? I have a hard time just to stop and celebrate and appreciate it. But number two, I've already built the next milestone. Um,
right.
as I watched your process, or I've heard your process many times about this 11-year stint of you doing the work and going deeper and telling the truth and coming clean, and I guess layers were kind of falling off of you. You had this new encounter with God. I mean, ultimately, right? I mean, it was an encounter you had never had before. About what point through that process did all that kind of start culminating for you?
Day one of,
D-
and my relationship with God was real but distant and dysfunctional in so many different respects.
Yeah.
I knew things that I couldn't live,
Mm.
and that was always a mystery to me. How come? Can we make a new commitment and start today? I don't want to deal with my crap. I don't want to deal with my history. I don't want to deal with the stuff that is behind the scenes. I
Yeah.
want to start today and make a new commitment, right?
Mhm.
And and we have to deal with that which is broken and damaged and
Yeah.
harmed, and and wholeness is when the choices we make, the ways of our being, the fruit of our life matches the truth of who we are. The
Mm.
problem is most of us have no clue about the truth of who we are,
Yeah.
or we've accepted what we've been told or communicated to as the truth. And a lot of that comes through curses, like, I wish you'd never been born.
Mhm.
Why
Mhm.
why couldn't you be other than you are? You're just worthless. Get out of my sight. Those are real curses,
Yeah.
and because they harm the truth of who you are. They place in you a question about your value, your worth, your goodness, your any of those other things. And that is rampant in the world, and it's really rampant in the church or in religion, because we've been told that we have a sin nature. That's talking about the truth of who we are.
Right.
We've been told that we are totally depraved. We are told that we are snow-covered dung.
Mhm.
Back in the day, they even referred to children as vipers in diapers. And I mean,
Vipers.
vipers in diapers. They have a sin nature, so that they're just little snakes. That's why they could be sent to eternal conscious torment,
Wow.
hell. And so, as a person believes in their heart about who they are, so becomes the ways of who they are. You will act out of what you believe to be true about yourself. And so right from the beginning of the when everything blew apart and when I burned up the world with the adultery, I had to start over. And one of the things that I had to start over with is, who are you, God? And then who am I? And I now see that this is true. If we have a low theology, we have a low view of God, we will have a low anthropology. We will
Mm.
have a low view of what it means to be human. And I needed to hear God tell me who I was. I didn't need to have religion tell me or my dad tell me or all those things. And that started right from almost day one, a reconstruction, tearing down to the foundations, rebuilding process for me. And that was a big one. Like, what is the truth of who I am? What's the truth? Because as long as I think I have a sin nature, I'm going to go, well, what did you expect? I have a sin nature. And here God is trying to help me what? Overcome that sin nature, like I have a good dog and a bad dog warring it out in me.
Yeah.
And so, who am I going to feed today kind of theology? That doesn't work, especially for those of us who have been really hurt and harmed and damaged in our childhood and other places in our lives. And it's like, there's really no hope for us. So what do we do? Well, we can play the game. We can pretend that we are good. We can pretend that we are, calm and have patience and all those things. But put me in a pressure situation, man, it's going
Mm.
to all come out, what
Man.
I believe to be true about myself. And it's because I believe my origins are all wrong. That
Yeah.
my origin is that I have a sin nature, that somehow I'm polluted to begin with, and now God is going to try to help me cover up that pollution in such a way that nobody can smell it anymore.
Wow.
And and the word sin in the Greek itself means a denial of origin.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's behavioral first. It's a denial of origin. If you don't believe that you are made in the image and likeness of God, and that you are kind by nature, that you are patient by nature, that you are pure of heart by nature, that you are self-controlled by nature, you're going to be in a war you will never win.
Mm.
Never win that war. But because you deny your origin and believe all that crap, then your life will exhibit all the crap you believe about yourself.
Mm.
And that's a killer right there.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal.
Sure, sure. So in so many people, and I've done this many times in my life, but this idea of hiding, right? Just not being able to come out and become the fullness. And if I've personally had a divine interruption multiple times in my life that have kind of stripped me down to reposition who I really am, right? And so many times, we have a tendency to self-sabotage ourselves, right, Paul, based on these limited beliefs or these ideas of who we really are. And oh my God, if the world really saw who I really was, or what I was really thinking, or what I was really processing internally, that I wouldn't be received, right? So
Well, yeah,
go ahead. Yeah, please.
fear fear doesn't allow us to stay present. It always pushes us off into an imagination of isolation. It isolates us and disempowers us.
Mm,
That's what fear does.
yeah,
Eternal life is always in the present, in this moment. This is where God lives with me. This is where I live with you in this moment.
yeah,
And uh, and so it's the issue of fear that then push, pushes us away from where love exists.
yeah,
And love and fear can't be in the same spot. Control and trust can't be in the same place.
yeah,
And so it's this thing about fear dominates us. I can ask anybody on the planet, so tell me what you're afraid of, and I
hmm,
will hear their story. If I go, when did that start? They will tell me their story.
yeah,
And it's there. It's what drives their lives. So fear pushes you out of relationship. It isolates you. If you have an imagination of everything going wrong, that imagination will be such a powerful thing. And in that imagination, you will not imagine the presence of God. God has abandoned you. Everybody else has abandoned you. You've got no one. You're in a cardboard box under the bridge. You've lost everything. All of this stuff.
mm,
You're going to die. And this goes back a little bit to the future tripping thing, is that James or Jude or somebody wrote and said, "Don't say I'm going to go to this city and I'm going to build this thing, this business, and I'm going to make it happen. Say, if I'm alive and God wills." That is, hold it loosely,
mm,
because you're going to define your identity based on the things that you do, and you're going to go after the next thing because there's never enough to resolve the emptiness in terms of what you believe to be true about you. To stay present requires trust. And that's not what we're willing. We have been trained to be future tripping control freaks,
yeah.
and that's how we live.
Paul, through that process, one of the most difficult things I feel like as I talk to a lot of men and women is we don't even want to be with ourselves, right? We have the most difficult time just sitting with ourselves to find that level of presence. We're so scattered, right? We're chasing something, so many things we're chasing. And what would you say to the person out there? The number one, you think about a single mother, right, who feels that she's got to provide for three kids while she's running a job and becoming a mother and carrying all these weights and responsibilities. Or you're talking to the entrepreneur out there that has multiple businesses and thousands of employees that they feel like that they're
Sure.
responsible for. And how do we get that balance? How do we get back to that presence and balance in our life for this?
Yeah. Balance is not a great word for me because it has inherent expectations of something that you have a pyramid of sort of responsibilities and things that you need to accomplish in order to get to be balanced.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
good.
Life is much more like a mobile, where all these little elements of your life are spinning around a central thing, and they're moved by the wind. So there's always things moving in and out at any given moment, and that's why you've got to stop running into imaginations that don't exist. In that James or Jude passage, it says, "Say, if I'm alive," right? If I'm alive, because if you're dead, it'll screw up every plan that you have.
Mm,
And so it's like, all right, what can I do? Come back to the present tense. Is there enough right here, right now, in front of you, without pushing your fears and all of that into some future imagination where nothing's working out?
yeah,
This is really hard.
yeah,
This is really hard work. to stay present to that which is actually in front of you,
Yeah.
and not into everywhere fear wants to drive you.
Mm.
Is there enough right here? Is there the presence of joy? Because in the presence is fullness of joy. Is there peace? I will keep you in perfect peace if your mind and heart is stayed on me. Where am I? Right here. This is be anxious for nothing. It's like,
Yeah.
how can you live that way? Abide in me. That is staying present. The only real world is the one that is actually present to you in this moment.
Mm.
You live here. The other things will happen and take care of themselves in one way or the other, and
Yeah.
not always for the better in terms of how you would analyze it.
Yeah.
You get hit sideways, but like a sister-in-law was just hit sideways by a catastrophic cancer diagnosis,
Mm.
right? But moment by moment is where she's actually living. Otherwise, she's going to be waiting to die rather than choosing to live.
Mm. That's
And
right.
where is life? It's only in this moment. Because you could have a brain aneurysm the next moment and it's all gone,
Yeah.
right? So stay present, respond. There is one of the words I'm not very fond of is responsibility. And it's interesting that it's not in the Greek or the Hebrew or the Aramaic. They had no concept of responsibility, and yet it dominates the world, including
Wow.
the religious.
It's true.
And what happens is that you can take a verbal concept and you can that is living and alive inside yourself, and you can externalize it into some form of law. So what is the living concept that became responsibility? And by the way, responsibility, that word came out of the Industrial Revolution.
Mm.
Think about it. It's
Yeah.
like, well, of course it did. And it was a way to traffic in human souls so that the machinery of the systems would be accommodated.
Yeah.
The verbal living concept is an ability to respond. You will have an ability to respond as things unfold. People say, well, then don't you make plans? Yeah, but I hold them really loosely. I
Mm.
had a whole calendar in 2020. This little tiny virus just ripped to shreds.
That's right.
And if my identity was in that calendar, if my security was in that calendar and all this stuff, I'd have been freaking out.
Mm.
But it's not. My identity is not in that calendar. My identity is not in my performance.
Yeah.
My identity is not in writing. I don't need to write a book to know who I am. I don't need to have a movie to know who I am. If you're a professional basketball player, your identity is not. That is something that you do, that you love to do, or whatever. But let me tell you, professional people are as fear-based as anybody else that I know,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and their lives behind the scenes are really in trouble
Yeah.
oftentimes. So, what is it? I will have an ability to respond. There's a verse that I love. When you stand before kings and priests, in that moment, I will put in your mouth what to say.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't have to figure everything out. And the more that you have out here that you're responsible for, the more freaking out you will live your life,
Yeah.
and you will lose your connection with your kids. You
Yep.
will end up alone or abusing people of one sort or another, or manipulating people because they're a means to dealing with your fear, or they're
Sure.
uh, somebody who interferes with with reaching your goals or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're not designed for that.
You're
We're
right.
actually designed to be human beings in
Not do it.
relationship one with another.
Absolutely. I
It's
will
hard to let go.
I was on vacation with my family, one year, several years back, and just had one of those moments. I woke up and you check your emails, and it was like anything that could go wrong was going wrong, right? Just like this business was happening, that was falling, this deal was going through. And I just remember it's like, oh my God, I just want to be on vacation. I want to rest. I want to relax. And I'll never forget this. I got in the shower and I guess I was just kind of meditating, kind of thinking, and just honestly just grumbling a little bit. And I'll never forget that the verse came to me that I'd forgot that I even read, but it was a proverb that said basically, where there are many oxen, there's a lot of shit, right? I mean, that's basically that, where there are many oxen, there's a lot of shit. And I felt I heard the Holy Spirit say, son, at any given point, you can get rid of the oxen. All right. I'm not making you carry these oxen. You're the one that keep bringing in more oxen, but don't fool yourself. If you decide to carry many oxen, you will wake up to shit every day. Right.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was just like, just hearing that thought of that, I was kind of like, it was just a little bit of relief that you're exactly right. I have a very difficult time. We all do, being human beings, right? We're great at human doings, but being a human being is very
Yeah.
difficult. So you
Yeah.
told a story one time, and I thought it was fascinating that basically as you were going through this 11-year period and all these layers and things were kind of falling off of you and situations were happening, you were going through foreclosure on your house as well.
Uh-huh.
And
That
and
was
I
one of the consequences of stupid choices that I'd made
Yeah, yeah, and
to
and
hide.
no, I get it, and but you said that you'd had these group of men around you, these brothers that loved you, and this quickly, they could have saved your house, they could have paid the mortgage, they could have caught you up, and not only did they wanted to do that, that
Yeah.
you stopped them, and you basically said, "You will not save me in this matter." Like
Yeah.
like
Please, please don't rescue me from this.
Unbelievable, man, and I think if I was in that position, I don't know, and again, it goes back to fear, right? It just ultimately goes back to fear, fear of exposure, fear of losing, fear of failing, but if
Yeah.
I would have been in that position that you were in right there, I don't know if I would have had the courage, to be brave enough to go, "Let me fall completely," you know? "Let me completely fall on the sword," and so that's that part of the story, but the other part about EnterUp Podcast is to talk about the comeback. I'm so honored that you've always lived your life in, well, since 50 on, or 38, 39 on, in a very vulnerable state, very transparent state where you've been so open to share your struggles, the situations that you've had to walk out in your life, the failures, if you will. Um, but there's a positive side of this, and I think that we're not talking about that too. Is that through this redemption, through this recovery process, something really, really beautiful happened on the outside of this, and that was you writing The Shack. And if you could just speak to that for a minute, because I know that you had no intentions on ever becoming a novel writer,
Yeah.
right? A New York
Yeah.
Times best-selling
Yeah.
author. But how did that transition, and what was that season like for you, and how did The Shack come about?
Well, and let me clarify one thing for those of you who are listening to this is that the issue with the house. That was an issue of trust. That was either because my history is so manipulating in terms of relationships. I
Mm,
shaded the truth. I would outright lie, and because I was afraid. I
yeah,
was afraid of looking stupid. I was afraid of being embarrassed. I was afraid of not. I was perfectionist. That
yeah,
was a problem, and um, and I felt the only way when I knew we were in trouble. We'd lived in this house for 17 years, and I knew we were in trouble. And that's when I called the guys up and said, "Please don't rescue me from this," because it was the only thing I knew what to do. And that fall of that year, which was the 11th year, 7 of those guys came and sat with me at the county courthouse while they auctioned off the house we'd lived in for 17 years.
mm,
So I'm just saying that it's not like, oh, I made a good right decision and everything turned out beautifully,
right.
right? Somehow somebody gave me the money. It was nobody knew, and BS. I mean, it doesn't work like that. But let me tell you, it was in part because of that, and we ended up living in a little tiny rental house on the corner of 12th Street in Gresham, and I was working 3 jobs,
Mm,
and I was content for
wow.
the first time in my life.
Mm,
And 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 Kim walked down to the high school, got a job in the high school bakery, and some months we had $30 in the bank, and some months we had $125 in the bank. But I had nothing to give the kids for Christmas that year. And Kim had been saying, someday as a gift for our kids, would you just write something that puts in one place how you think, because you think outside the box. And she was thinking 4 to 6 pages, which she didn't tell me until later. And I was going like, I think I can do this. The reason that I'd never done this, because she had been asking me kind of off and on for 4 years, and I always thought, I'm not healthy enough. I'm just
mm,
not healthy enough.
mm,
But the year I turned 50, I thought, you know what? I'm healthy enough. And so mostly on the train to my main job downtown Portland, I wrote The Shack, got it done, got some money at Christmas, which is a whole story by itself, and
Fascinating
went
story,
down.
by the way.
Oh my gosh! And
Unbelievable.
went down to Office Depot and printed 15 copies on their photocopier, and because I they had a sale, and I could get 15 for the price of 8. I only needed 8 because 6 kids and Kim and I. But I had 15, so that's what I gave my kids for Christmas that year, and the extras I gave to my friends and went back to work. It never even crossed my mind, like you said, to I had no interest in being a published author or anything like that. That's why I can say my identity is not being a published author.
Yeah,
If this all went away today, I'd be absolutely fine.
yeah,
And um, it's so my friends start giving it away. That starts this chain reaction. It becomes this thing, this thing which is obvious that I never intended it.
sure.
So why would I? It was participation with God's sense of humor, I think, and or if you know the Old Testament, I like to say it's proof that God can still speak through Balaam's ass. But you have to know the story of the of the donkey that talked. And
Sure.
but again, so this thing has become this amazing worldwide phenomenon,
Yeah.
and but my identity's not in it. I'm free from this thing,
Wow.
and uh, and have been since day one. Like I say, I can still get triggered about some things. I can still suddenly be freaking out, especially when it involves my kids or my
Sure.
grandkids. And
Sure.
it's like, oh. Then I end up playing the Holy Spirit in their lives and trying to make, because I'm all concerned. It's a baptized word for freaking out, being,
Yeah.
being full of fear.
Oh, yeah.
And but I'm learning how to live this way more and more all the time,
Mm.
and it's amazing. It's like you feel so irresponsible, but I found out that freedom feels irresponsible,
Yeah.
and it's like what are we putting our hope in? Horses and chariots and kings and all of this, and a system of ideologies, political ideologies, or all kinds of conversation to be had inside of all of that. But it's like, no, it's pretty simple that even a child knows how to live this way until they're harmed. And a lot of us, we either never knew what it was like to
Yeah.
live this way, or we were harmed so badly that we don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, if you've not watched the movie The Shack, if you've not read Paul's book, The Shack, absolutely transformed my life. Especially fond of you. It's such a beautiful part of the story. But so many people don't believe that, Paul. What would you say to the listener out there as we wrap up of someone
Yeah.
who feels like God is disappointed in them? How would you speak to that?
Well, for God to be ever disappointed, God would have to have an expectation.
Mm,
And to have an expectation means that God doesn't know something about you.
yeah.
And so I can tell you right off that God is never disappointed in you. God is grieved with you for the losses, for the habits, for the addictions, for all of these things. And that is a God who lives in you and experiences all of it with you, in you.
Mm,
And I believe that every person is indwelt by love. Indwelt in my language would be the very real full presence of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And 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 there is nothing that you can get away from. Let me let me read you a quick. Let me find it. I know you can edit some of this,
no,
but
please do.
yeah, this is a Christmas poem by my friend David Tenson, who I love very, very much. He's
Yeah.
an Aussie, and um, let me just find it. It'll take a second here.
You turned me on to David 5 or 6 years ago when you came to Atlanta to visit, and such a powerful,
Isn't he amazing?
incredible. Yeah, we can all enjoy a Christmas poem right now, can't we?
Yeah, here it is. So this is my Christmas poem that was sent to me. I had a rough week was it last week? It was the week of the 10th, 11th. The 10th was the day my dad was born. His birthday was on the 10th. He died a couple years ago.
Mm,
The 11th, my friend Harold on death row in Tennessee was executed.
mm.
And we also found out about the cancer for uh, my sister-in-law. It was a rough
Yeah, it's tough.
week. And and David, in the middle of it, not knowing anything that was going on, sent me a Christmas poem. And here's how it goes. Jesus wept, but first he screamed. God with lungs, singing to the stars, breathing in Bethlehem, murmuring mysteries in a mother tongue only known to babies and angels. There he lay, in the lap of humanity, utterly vulnerable. Never again can we declare that God is distant and does not know what it's like to be fragile and in need. I imagine the first scream was long, loud, proud, announcing his own arrival and demanding salvation from the shock of elements and endless thirst. Milk from a breast in the beginning, vinegar from a sponge in the end.
Mm,
I know.
it's
You
powerful.
know, for those who are really struggling with all of this, it's like go back to the simple things. I believe every human being can hear God speak. They just don't trust their ability to hear God speak, God who lives in them. And start with a couple really simple things. God, do you live in me? And trust the first thing that you hear.
Mm,
The other one is, God, do you still love me? Start with that. And if you, it's like, why can't I hear anything? Then ask, what is it that stops me from trusting that I can hear anything? And go down that.
it's so good.
Um, yeah,
So good,
these are.
Paul.
I go back to these simple things,
Yeah.
and I think that the world and religion and all of this has taught us that we do not have a capacity to hear God.
Mm,
And the other thing that we can start to think about doing is wedding, um, creating a union between our imagination and love rather than imagination and fear.
yeah.
Imagination and love, then we get to play with things like business. We get to play with creativity and art and relationships. And rather than being afraid of success and failure and, all these things, when we wed imagination to fear, we end up in future tripping imaginations of crisis and trauma and tragedy. But wedded to love, that's childlikeness.
Mm,
That's creativity in all the best senses because it's not linked to our need for identity and worth and value and significance and security and meaning and purpose and destiny and community and love, all of
man,
that. And again, do you still love me? Are you in me? And then you just see where it goes.
that's great. That's great, Paul. I love all this, man. This I could do this for days with you, as you know. I mean, just having your presence, it brings a calmness on me as we continue the conversation. There's so many more subjects and topics that I want to dive in, but I know our time has come to the end. If you're out there listening, please follow William Paul Young on all of his social media platforms. Read his books, all of them. They're absolutely incredible. For the listener, Paul, any upcoming kind of things that you're working on that you want to
Yeah.
share with all the listeners?
Yeah. Actually, I've just finished writing the sequel for The Shack. And it's because of my friends on death row that even became a possibility.
Wow.
And
Heck yeah.
so that comes out October 6th of 26, and it turned out beautifully. I'm very if if my family are the only ones that read it, perfect. I'm good. I'm good.
I,
And
I think you ruined that.
uh, the other thing too is that we've been working for 3 years on a major motion, not major motion picture, but on a stage musical production of The Shack.
Yes.
And so that's going to happen in Germany first, either spring of 28 or 29, and then it'll go out from the German world into English and other things. We're writing it in English, of course, and so it's going to be translated. But that is, I want to see how this shows up in three-dimensional, face-to-face kind of interaction. I
It's
love
going to be so
theater.
cool.
Oh, so cool. And the Hachette, the publisher that took The Shack to the world, is coming out with a special edition this summer, a hardback edition of The Shack, and there'll be 3 chapters from the sequel in it too. So that's pretty fun.
That's
Have a
fantastic.
little podcast that is a no purpose unpodcast, no purpose. It's a no purpose podcast, and it's real simple, really catchy name. Paul Young Podcast.
Paul Young
So
Podcast.
it's like twice a week for 15 to 20 minutes, and it's whatever. It's whatever comes up. So
I love
that's
it.
pretty fun.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, I'm going to follow that personally. All the listeners out there, I encourage you to follow Paul. Brother, all I can tell you is thank you for being on the EnterUp Podcast. This means the world. You've added so much value to me personally, but I know the listeners are going to get more of this. I wish you nothing but the absolute best for 2026, brother. Keep loving well and living honest, and the best is yet to come, right?
Yep. Right back at you, brother.
All right. God bless you. See you soon, buddy. Thanks, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for spending time with me today. Remember, it's not about pretending the story is finished. It's about having the courage to keep writing it, even in the middle. If this podcast has encouraged you or inspired you in any ways, please follow us at enterupwithwill.com and across all social media platforms. And please like, subscribe, and share for more. Until next time, keep showing up, keep rising, and keep choosing to enter up.